Welcome to the Poultry Doc Podcast, where backyard bird health meets expert veterinary insight. In today's episode, we're tackling a common but often misunderstood issue, lameness in backyard chickens. Whether it's a subtle limp or a bird that's completely down, we'll dive into the most common causes, what signs to look for, and how to take action. So if you like the content, peck that like button, drop us a comment below, and share with friends. Hello everyone, welcome to the Poultry Doc Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Blayne. Today we're at Heather and Jana's house here in South Austin. Heather contacted me about one of her birds, one of her Silkies that seems to have a little lameness, so we're going to talk about that today. Heather, we talked a little bit already, but why don't you fill us in a little bit about what you've been seeing and how old she is?
Yeah, so we got all of them about 2 months ago as chicks, and she's one of two Silkies, and she was fine as a chick. No issues that we saw. She was doing just as well as all the others. But about 3 weeks ago, we noticed her looking a little top heavy is kind of the best way to say it. She would kind of just like fall over a little bit and just a little wobbly is the best I could describe it. Mm-hmm. But then I guess maybe about a week ago or so, in the morning, the coop cam showed her on the bottom of the coop. So I think she may have fallen from the roost or have been, knocked off. And ever since then, she's really deteriorated, although stabilized deteriorated, like a pretty marked from here to here and then there. She's on anti-inflammatories in case there was some kind of injury, but she really doesn't stand up. She does try to keep up with them if she can. Like if they hear a noise and they all run to one side, she'll make her way there.
Still curious.
Yeah, she's also so much smaller now than the others. Her growth kind of seemed to just kind of stall out like 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Now you said she's on an anti-inflammatory. That was from the vet visit that you made, but really haven't seen any improvement from that.
No.
Okay.
The vet was the one who asked us to crate her so that we could see her poop, keep her safe, and
right. And the droppings look good. I mean, she just went in the crate, and that looks totally normal.
Yeah. I mean, she has zero problems eating. I don't know why she's not growing with how much she eats.
Yeah. Well, so the stress of whatever's causing her the lameness, right? And we're gonna put her down in a second. I get a better idea of how she walks and the way it looks, but the stress in itself will kind of slow them down from a growth standpoint. And she still may, while she's looking like she's eating normally or a lot to you, she's probably still not eating as much as the others, right?
Yeah.
So that are able to get around and kind of forage and do their thing. So I'm gonna set her down and we'll take a look at how she's gonna walk. Okay, see if you'll eat it over here. So there's a couple things, in our email conversation, I mentioned two different things. One was the BCO, really long words, bacterial chondronecrosis with osteomyelitis. Basically, that is an infection of the kind of head of the femur. It can be in a couple different bones, but the leg bones for sure. And essentially what happens there, it weakens like the head of the femur, and it's an infection, and it's in the bone. It's very painful. And as that progresses over time, that bone just becomes more brittle. While you can treat with antibiotics, infections in the bone are incredibly difficult to actually get rid of, just because they basically wall themselves off. And that tends to progress. That's kind of odd too, that should be doing that and not try to right herself. I don't think that's it, because usually that happens a little bit later. They would tend to be sort of feverish because she's got an infection going on. There's another issue that's more genetic, and it's called tibial dyschondroplasia. And it's essentially like, again, you have the head of the femur, and she's young and she's growing, and there's the growth plate. And so it's a malformation of the growth plate where there is basically it's a kind of a cartilage plug is what forms, where there should be an even layer of two types of the growth plates, like the zone of hypertrophy and the zone of proliferation. They should be about the same, but one overtakes the other, and basically it loses blood supply and it causes pain because the bone's not forming correctly. That kind of seems like, that if I had to guess, like this is what it would be, but when she's falling over like that, that's to me is more like a coordination thing. Mm-hmm. But you see how she puts her wing down, and there's another way to test that, like coordination. So Yeah, so if I tip her to the side like this, it's just like somebody like, pulling out the rug from you. You would try to.
And so that's a good sign that she's doing that.
Yeah, she's supposed to do
having that neurological awareness.
But she also is stumbling and falling over, and like she's drunk, like you said earlier.
Right. Yeah, it's like she's drunk. Yeah. Although now it's like she's on the streets. Like it's gone to another level.
Yeah, it's progressed.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an injury, one, because just the way both feet, right, and this paddling sort of thing, it really seems more neurologic.
Yeah.
When we test with her ability to balance, she kind of checks the box there, but yeah, in the end, I mean, she does still tip over and paddle, which would seem odd. So one of the things, we can see that can cause that, like the neurologic signs, they'll get basically an ear infection, and it becomes an inner ear infection. It's so close to the brain that you do see neurologic signs. Yeah, but this one, she's just she's breathing fine. She's not like panting. She doesn't seem to have a fever. I didn't bring a thermometer, but I don't think that's the issue here.
Yeah, I mean, other than her falling over and not being able to get around, she seems okay.
I mean, her eyes are bright. She seems to be in like good spirits, to put it that way. She's just not quite, like you said, the balance.
And up until a week ago, Jane and I were both like, well, like, yeah, she's a little wobbly, but she still has a really good quality of life, and she doesn't seem in pain.
Yeah.
But then that kind of changed. I don't know how great her quality of life is right now, especially, living in a crate. And then when she tries to get out with her litter mates, I guess you call them, she gets knocked over. Nobody's been picking on her.
Yeah, well, it's good that they're not being aggressive. At the same time, she can't hold her own, basically, right?
Yeah.
Get in there. And what happens, too, with birds in that scenario, I know there's not as many here, and you can kind of individually control them, but they'll go after the weak and push them to the side, but also they'll take advantage of the feed more so, and then she gets smaller and smaller because she gets less and less.
Right.
And the other ones get bigger. In her case, it would seem like if it is the issue with the growth plates, that as she matures, which is still a ways away, that issue could resolve. But it seems to be more of a cognitive, neurological thing, because she's balancing, she's going forward, she'll fall on her side and paddle. She doesn't have that natural instinct to jump up and stay really balanced, right? While she still does have the ability to right herself, when I test her with her wings, there's something that's not all connected there. So, yeah, I don't think it's like a structural bone issue, like some of the things we talked about. There's another one I was feeling on her, basically like her Achilles tendon. It's a virus called rheovirus. It can affect their tendons early on, connective tissue, and basically it doesn't really cause a lot of issues at this age. It will infect them early, but it causes damage, and then as they get older, then you can have like where the tendons become brittle and they'll break, like when they're starting to jump up and down, and then she'll become lame. It can be painful when they're young like this, and you'll see or feel swollen. Those tendons will swell some. I don't feel any of that on her, so I don't think that's it.
So if it's viral or bacterial, are the rest of them at any kind of risk?
So it depends. Like she's had this for a while now, so the likelihood, if it was viral, she's already been through it. She's probably shed that virus, and the others would have been exposed. So that, again, that's a less likely one. I hate to like throw antibiotics at everything, but that is something. So if it were like that inner ear infection, that is kind of causing her to be a little wobbly and lose coordination, sort of like it starts with a V.
Vertigo.
Vertigo, right? That can be an issue. But again, like see her tail shaking like that.
Yeah, and the other day when we brought her to the vet, I noticed her head was twitching, which I hadn't noticed before.
Right. I mean, it can't hurt her. Obviously, being on antibiotics for a long time is not good either, but we would keep her, assuming that this is a bone infection, I would say let's put her on like a chlortetracycline, which does have more ability to go into the bone and attach to calcium, and to do it for about 2 weeks. So we could give you enough medication like to treat like a couple gallon, like you can mix a gallon on, today, and that would last you like 7 days, and then I'll give you another packet that you can treat a second gallon with, and then just but water her out of that gallon over the next 2 weeks, or two gallons over 2 weeks. There's no way she'll drink 2 gallons, but it's hard. It's hard to measure less than that.
Right.
So you kind of want her in there with the other birds. You don't want her to get hurt, but she's going to kind of need to hold her own, or at least figure it out. And the quality of life being in the cage is probably not that great. So keep her in the crate or some sort of confined area. Maybe not the crate, but maybe like we talked about
I could probably
in the bottom.
do that.
And then again, where she just really has access to the medicated water, we don't necessarily need to give
Not
it to
them,
the other
right.
birds. Wouldn't hurt them, but they don't need it. And then, after 2 weeks, I think we reevaluate and see where she's at, if it's had any improvement. My honest opinion is I don't think it probably will, but again, it's not going to hurt. And then we can kind of reevaluate at 2 weeks. To me, it's more of a neurologic thing, even though she kind of tests out right for the instinctual things. I hate to say it like this, like chickens may be a little slow.
Right. Yeah. That's why, like a week ago, we were like, she's just special.
Yeah, she's
but
special.
She still has a good quality of life, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But then she just really kind of became much more immobile, and then she was starting to get trampled, and they walk over her.
Yeah.
I'm wondering at what point we make the decision to put her down, because I don't want to prolong her suffering.
Yeah, I had a great professor in vet school. She was a veterinary oncologist, dogs and cats primarily. And she had a great, I wouldn't call this a solution, but recommendation for owners, wondering about the right time to do this. And so she said, and this was for older patients, right, older pets. She's still young, so you can't really answer all these questions yet, but if she was your dog, right? Pebbles has 3 things that she loves to do. It could be throwing the ball, it could be eating, it could be jumping in your lap, whatever. 3 things. If 2 of those 3 things either she can't or does not want to do anymore, it's probably time to consider, what to do next. And so that's something I try to tell people, and that kind of separates them from the decision a little bit. In her case, she's obviously young, so she probably doesn't have all those activities figured out yet. But she's eating right now. She's, bright-eyed. Like, look at her. She doesn't seem to feel bad. But if she's at a point where she's getting trampled and picked on and just can't get around, if you're having to bring her food for her to eat, that's probably not, a long-term solution. Sadly, that's kind of what we need to consider when it comes to potentially, euthanasia.
Yeah. So if we put her on the antibiotics, how soon would we notice if that is having an impact?
I would say the whole 2 weeks is what she's going to need, especially if it's an infection in the bone. It's going to take a while
to get there, right?
She's likely always going to be stunted growth-wise, just because she's this behind already. And so that's going to contribute, like when those calories are sort of deficient at certain time points as they grow, it affects their frame, or bone structure. Yeah, it's a difficult case, right? And no simple answer. I don't think it's painful, and I know, like, when you look at her, she doesn't look painful, but again, birds are prey animals,
right? We don't know.
They hide their pain really well. They hide sickness very well. And muscling-wise, she's smaller, but she's not like, you can tell she's eating, because birds have a really high metabolism. They're like, her body temperature is probably like 104, 105 is normal. And so to keep that temperature, they burn a lot of calories. So if they go off feed, they lose weight really quickly. But again, she's eating fine, she's pooping fine.
Yeah.
So I don't see any issues there. And from a feathering standpoint, I know she's kind of in the middle of blowing out down
she's so
or whatever.
Awkward.
But and Silkie too, so not quite normal, but she looks fine there. I think it's like more a neurologic balancing issue.
Look at you go.
So they call that wing walking, and that can be kind of a sign of, painful. It's hard to get around, so they're trying to take stress off, take weight off when they walk. But when you add it all together, she's like, it's a balancing issue. She's trying to balance with her wings more so than take weight off.
Sweet girl.
So it seemed like at first, like the wings were more like to just help her like get up and get like some momentum to move, but it seems like she's having a hard time moving without them now.
Yeah, now she can't really.
And she can't really get up the ramp.
Not anymore.
Right? Yeah, so, recommendation here. Again, we don't know exactly what's going on. This is one of those interesting cases where it's kind of a wait and see. I think from a prognosis standpoint, probably not great, but we're going to treat her for 2 weeks with chlortetracycline. If there is an infection in the bone, that should probably help a little bit. And again, it's probably not a long-term solution if it is in the bone, just because those infections are very difficult to treat.
So stop with everything else in her, the rooster booster, the
Yeah, I would,
no
especially while
electrolytes.
she's on the antibiotics, because we don't want to mix those two together.
Okay.
And again, the vitamins aren't going to necessarily hurt. The fat-soluble vitamins are the ones which aren't in the vitamins that you give, but those are the ones you have to watch out for. Those can be toxic because you can't get rid of them.
Too much of them. Yeah.
Today, I want to thank Jana and Heather for inviting us out and having us look at Duster's mobility issues and lameness. And I think what it's going to boil down to be is a neurologic issue. However, we decided to put her on the 2-week treatment of antibiotics just in case if it was a infection in the bone, and we can maybe see some response to that. We'll like continue on, and if not, we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there if we don't see any results from it. But again, do you have any other questions for me? I know we've been chatting for a while.
No, I think you answered almost everything, and we'll give it a try and hope she's better after the 2 weeks, or at least some improvement after the 2 weeks.
I'll check in, and if something comes up, feel free to message me.
Yeah,
I'm happy to come
will.
back and check it out. But until next time, thanks for tuning into the poultrydoc.com, and like and subscribe and share. And I appreciate you joining. Thanks.